All right, let's call our meeting to order. Rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This morning, I want to start the meeting out talking about our dear friend Bob Chamness, who passed away on Sunday. We'll miss him a lot. I'm not sure exactly how many years he's been on council, but he's been in service for almost 50 years. So does anybody have anything that they'd like to share about Bob? I know first thing he'd ask me every time, how's things in Cambridge City? You got everybody under control, you know?
Bob was with the county for almost 50 years. I was fortunate enough to work with him for almost 40 of those. He was at the Mary Hill home as manager, when I became commissioner. And Bob always had a smile. He always agreed, how's things in Hagerstown, you know? Yep. We got along great. We didn't always agree on the way basketball and football would go, but it was just fun disagreement. So Bob will be missed. Bob was a great asset to the county. He was a great person and a good man.
True public servant.
Yes, very much so.
He was an independent thinker. Contrary to what Max said, he knew what he was talking about in football and basketball. But had a wealth of knowledge, unbelievable, the stories and the information that he could provide in helping us guide the county. Definitely will be missed. He said probably 200 times, if I could clone my dog, he wanted one.
Yes.
Well, Bob's gonna get a meet or get to see Hayward again. So, Bob will really be missed.
I'd like to say too, I know many, many times Bob told me he wanted to get to that 50-year mark. He wanted to serve the people of Wayne County for 50 years. And if he didn't get there, he got very close. And also when I was leaving the treasurer's office, he came and encouraged me to run for council because he said, one, it's nice to have a female voice, no offense, gentlemen, but also because having been a full-time employee like Bob was, we see things a little differently. And so he was very encouraging and just a wonderful man. And like everybody else has said, I think Bob put God first, his family, and then Wayne County. Well, IU fits in there somewhere, and if you knew Bob Chamness, you'd have to say that. He was a diehard IU fan. So anyway, Bob's a wonderful man, and I know his family and friends will all miss him.
I think I go back 30 years when I hired on the police department, and Bob became the chief probation officer. The word that comes to mind with him is wisdom, because I was young and eager, and he was always calm and methodical. And he would say things like, now, Barry, that's not how we do things. Stop and think. That never changed. I have a blue shirt on today in honor of him because he would always tell me, his first comment to me was, you were always my favorite guy in blue. Came from the sheriff's department. So he will be missed. He was a dear friend and confident and just a wise individual.
Yes.
If you watch Bob walk into this building, you see how many people loved him. He gets hugs from everybody, and he was just very well respected. And we just want to extend our sympathies to Alice and the family. So,
Like I said, he's a true public servant. You always want to know, like everybody else, how's things in the economy. Always encouraging, always had a positive attitude. And like I say, he thought things were pretty good. Not like all things. Truly being missed.
okay, let's move on with our agenda today.
First of all, could we have a moment of silence?
We can. Okay. First up, we have approval of council minutes from our February 7th meeting.
Move for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Of course, there are none. We have some new business today. We have a contract with the EDC. Is this from you, Ron? The EDC contract?
This is just the renewal contract. Obviously, the term of the current agreement isn't up to year end, but we like to get this in place. The commissioners had no substantive changes in it. The ones I don't think consolidated edit is not count 170 anymore, but we still have consolidated edit. So whatever it is, that's the only thing I took out of it. This will then allow Val and the group to solicit the units for their participation as in consolidated edit.
Okay. Do we have a motion to allow me to sign this contract for EDC?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none.
And you're signing that basically and approving it just to endorse the concept of the pooled funding that underlies the theory of consolidated edit. You're not in any way limiting your discretion to rescind, lower or rescind or impact the edit tax. That's still your function. And unless bonds are issued in reliance upon and to be repaid from edit, you have that discretion continuing throughout the term of the contract.
I'll sign those and get those to you at the end of the meeting. Next up, we have Brandon Sanders from the Highway Department. He's got great news for us today.
Yes. First off, I wanted to offer our condolences from our offices for Bob and his family. We are thinking of him. Okay, so just a little bit of backstory. We've been working with NDOT on all our 8 federal projects. I was told yesterday at a pre-construction meeting that we are one of the top counties in the state for number of projects. So that shows our commitment to improving our infrastructure and keeping it safe for the traveling public. So a little bit of backstory. The past year and a half, we've been working with NDOT trying to find different avenues for additional funding. You know, with the increases in construction costs, just it was, you know, it's hard for everybody to plan, not just Wayne County, but all 91 other counties. NDOT has told us that, you know, we can't issue any additional funding until after the letting, so that it's not set in stone. But there were mechanisms in place that if there was, we could execute it fairly quickly. Our most recent project on South G Street went to letting on February the 15th, and at that time it was considered an awardable project through NDOT, and they were not able to issue us any additional funding for that project to meet the 80-20 split. So I provided to you a sheet. I've got a copy of it in front of you too if you need it. Just want to kind of explain what's on this first page. You're going to see a column for the original construction cost. Those amounts were set at the beginning of the project as early as 2018, 2019, when we were first awarded the project with NDOT. The next column over, you're going to see the updated construction cost, and that's mainly due to the unprecedented inflation that we have seen over the past couple of years. You'll also see the original LPA funding and the NDOT funding columns. That shows what we were awarded back, 2018, 19, 20, when these projects were first awarded by NDOT. There's a column for the additional NDOT funding. We have not been able to secure anything as of now for any of these. And then the last column is the funding shortage. So that is the amounts that we as the LPA will have to cover to push these projects through construction. And then, of course, I've got some percentages for you to see the increase from the original construction costs to the current construction costs to kind of give you an idea of how this inflation has affected us. So a plan moving forward that I think will help us on G Street would be to use the bridge portion of the jail bond fund to help cover the funding shortage. I know this year we have appropriated $900,000 for this project, and there's $856,000 and some change in our portion of the bridge, or the jail bond fund, which would make up the shortage for this project. And I think that would be the quickest thing that we could do to get this project fully awarded, fully paid. Typically on federal projects, you have an 80-20 match, whereas we would pay for our portion of the invoice at 100%, and then we would get an 80% reimbursement, a month or two later. With the construction funding, they just request our 20% upfront. So we don't have to pay 100% and get a reimbursement. It's just our 20%. So the funding shortage, that's just our 20%, it's actually more than 20% because of the funding shortages. So on a typical project, it would be just a 20% match and we're done. But I didn't want to play the game of waiting till NDOT to tell us at letting to say, hey, here's some extra money or not. I think we need to take a worst case approach moving forward so we're not scrambling per se. So I have provided a list of all 8 projects. I've grouped them into 3 categories. The first 4 let this year, the next 2 in 25, and then the last 2 in 26. Now, NDOT fiscal years are July to July, as we are calendar years. So they have told me that there is no extra money for fiscal 24 and fiscal 25, which would be the rest of basically July of this year to December is part of fiscal 25. However, there may be some additional funding in fiscal 26 and fiscal 27. So the bottom 4 projects could see some additional money, but based on what's happened with 701, I would like to assume that there is no more funding. And then if we do get it, that's just less we have to pay out. But at least we can plan for the worst case scenario here. So the other 3 that are letting later this year, we probably need to figure out how we're going to move forward with those costs. But I think for 701, I think a plan moving forward would be to use the jail bond to cover our shortages on that project.
Bridge on here shows a decrease.
Yes, so that one, when we applied, I think we did that one in 2020, early 2020. The estimated construction costs at that time are more than what they're projecting now. So that could be, different items within the design, or that may not have been needed. Like we didn't need as much sidewalk replacement or, as much paving. So some of those items may have decreased, which is causing that negative number there. So, but the one that I've got highlighted in yellow, that is based on the actual letting. The rest of these are just based on the up-to-date construction estimates that are provided from our designers. So that number could change the closer we get to letting, but as of now, we're seeing it being a little bit less than what was originally projected when the project was awarded.
I met with Brandon, we had discussed this all earlier in the week. We can cover this bridge, but my concern is these other 7 bridges on the list. With the jail bond funding, we're still going to be way short. This is basically going to take all of the funds out of our bridge fund. We collect roughly $1 million a year for that. About 20% of that goes to administrative costs or the things that's involved. It leaves around the 80% for actually construction of bridges. Just so everybody in the public's aware, that the shortfall on this bridge that we're talking about today is $1,178,000 plus dollars. All in all, the total funding shortfall as projected right now for these other 7 projects, including this one, is over $4.5 million. Very significant number. I would have appreciated us having some discussion about this much, much earlier, so that we could maybe be doing some better planning for this. Today, we can't take action. I understand that there's been an advertisement for the appropriation of the jail bond money, which we can act on at the workshop. Appreciate Brandon coming in today to talk about this. But we've got to have some serious discussion how we're going to address these other 7 bridges, and if we will even be able to do all of them on the time frame that's before us.
Luckily, the shortfall of the one falls in this year, and it's all but about $50,000 on one of the other projects, but, yeah, we still are looking at 900,000 at least to come up with, so.
So we've got tax collections to come in, and in case the public's not aware, there's a levy for the bridge fund. We collect funds for that twice a year when you pay your property taxes. But the income to the bridge fund will be less, that's usable for the bridges will be less than the total Beth just indicated. And with the balance that we will have, we probably can do these this year in '24, but we'll have no money left. That'll be a big issue going forward.
Correct. Yeah, the past 2 budget hearings that we've had, we've kind of presented with you guys a shortfall of being maybe under the 2 million mark in these next few years, but that was prior to the updated construction costs post-inflation, which is why you're seeing that significant drop sooner than we had anticipated.
Well, and this is kind of a problem the state's put on us, because they usually come up with the money and it all gels, but this time they're saying they have no extra money, and that's kind of put us all in a spot, hasn't it?
Right, and like I said, we're not the only LPA in the
Yeah.
situation. The other 91 counties plus local, cities and other municipalities are seeing this burden as well.
Brandon, do you know of any other grants? Is there any other place that we could look for grant money of some sort or something? Is there anything out there that maybe we could check into?
I can look and see. I know with any federal grants, whether it's through NDOT or another funding source, if it's federal money, you can only get up to 80% total between all of it. But I can definitely see if there's any other programs out there that we can try to pull from.
Great, thank you.
I commend the highway department, the bridge, all for having the long-term plans, having bridges in the process to be ready to go. It's just now we got a major problem thrust on us by the state of Indiana. We got to address, and it's not going to be easy to do that.
Right.
And so you have a plan to cover this one, and we've advertised so that we can take care of that at workshop. So then, we just need to keep all this other stuff in our minds as we're going through budget cycles and trying to figure out
Correct.
where we're going from here. But I appreciate having all this in front of us so that we can take a look at it and see what we can do.
Okay. I mean, there are several options. Pushing a project off to the next
Yeah.
fiscal year, although construction costs are not gonna come down, but if NDOT could secure us extra money by moving a project out, it may cost more, but our payout may be less if they get the extra funding. So I'm working with them on that to say, is there any possibility to secure it prior to letting
Yeah.
to kind of help us, the LPAs, plan for this unprecedented inflation, so.
Yeah, I'd appreciate if you keep us updated on that
Of
kind of
course,
thing.
yep.
As soon as you find something out, just copy us in an email with the commissioners or whatever you need to do so we can know what's going on, okay?
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We have commissioners' comments today. Who's talking first? Mr. Higginbotham?
Good morning.
Morning.
The sheet you have before you is what I sent to you in the email yesterday. I wanted to give you a little bit of extra time to look at it because there are some changes on it that I wanted to talk about so we're all on the same page. Just briefly about the projects, the courthouse exterior, the company, the contractor has started to stage and mobilize to start work this spring. They've got their storage facility on site on the west side of the courthouse. They've delivered. There are some windows that are part of this project that are clear at the top. They're the original windows of the courthouse that are being, you'll have a new window put on the outside of them to protect those. Those have been delivered. The chamber remodeling, this part, I think we're pretty comfortable that this bulkhead repair is going to work. It's been up there for about a month now. We've not seen any buckling on it, so we'll be releasing those funds to the contractor. Then the HVAC at the expo hall, those units have been set. The ductwork has been insulated. They've got the electrical panels hooked up so that now they're running gas and they'll be balancing the system. So that should be operational in the next couple of weeks. So on your sheet, I have added a column to this and then clarified in column F. Column F is where you normally have seen where the funding comes from. So in this case, I've added ARPA funding. Remember the action that you folks took last week and a couple weeks prior to that where you agreed to move some of these projects from council one time into ARPA. So that middle column there will reflect the source of the funding for the project. And then I've added column H, and that's a new column, and so that'll show you the amount of money from ARPA. And then in some of these projects, the ARPA funding did not completely fund what the remaining balance was on the project, so they're broken up. So the column I is your council one-time commitment. For example, the first two projects there, the courthouse exterior and the annex generator, you'd committed $600,000 to both of those projects combined. So in column H, those two numbers total to $600,000, but there's about $1,125 left in the committed contract, so that is coming out of the council one time. So if you go down to the bottom then, line 23, column H and I, that's the breakdown of what you have committed from ARPA, and then what is left of what you've already committed that will come out of the council one time. Column 24 is what is currently in your council one-time account. That's the fund balance as of yesterday. And that includes, remember you reduced it by 1.5 million, and then we added in what we reimbursed you from the naming rights fund, and then what was approved to be encumbered. So that is where that number comes from. And then line 25 would be what your council one-time fund balance would be if you remove the encumbrance. And I'm suggesting that that is what will happen, because essentially when you agreed to spend the $1.2 million out of ARPA, that took away the amount that you needed to encumber to pay for those committed projects. So then line 26 is the encumbered amount. And again, the line 26 plus line 25 equals line 24. Is that clear?
It's fun.
And then, when finance meets in a few minutes, you know, on your list, you've got some additional projects that you'll be considering. And should you approve these, we'll add these to this sheet so that you'll be able to track those going forward. So this sheet that you get from me will track the council one-time expenditures, the ARPA expenditures, and the cum court expenditures all together. Beth will be tracking just the ARPA expenditures because that's a report that she has to generate on her own. Any questions?
We're doing this. I love this, knowing what's going on and
Me
exactly
me
where
too.
we're at. Yeah, it's great.
Too.
It's great.
And then, as far as Bob Chambliss is the reason I'm here at the county. He hired me to.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I was first hired at the county. He was the chief probation officer and the chairman of the Community Corrections Advisory Board. And so in 1988, I was hired as the first director of Community Corrections, and been here mostly ever since. Thank you.
Uh-huh. All right. This morning, we have with us Mr. Jeff Plaster, who's a commissioner, and it's his birthday.
Happy
So
birthday
happy
to
birthday,
me.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Terry was
Thank
gonna
you.
sing, but we don't have time for that.
Woo, that was a close
Yeah, that was
call.
You
close.
couldn't find his 2 5-gallon buckets to carry it to him.
Happy birthday, Jeff.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. I would just like to say a word on behalf of the commissioners. Bob Chambliss was excellent to work with. I had the opportunity to work with him for 25 years during my time between council and commissioners. Most of that time, he was the head of the probation office, always willing to spend the time to go over information and make sure that everyone understood where we were at and what his perspective was. And he did the same thing as a member of council for the last, 10, 12 years. So it's been a pleasure to work with him. He will be, as you all said, very, very much missed. I don't have a lot to share with you. I will tell you that I spent the last 2 days with our friends at Okra, thinking about whether the county and communities within the county should be applicants for their new Regional Stellar Pathways program. We'll continue to discuss that, and we'll share with you information as it becomes available. Just a few weeks ago, we thought that we were not going to be eligible to apply as participants in the HELP program. Their initial position was that HELP participants were not eligible to apply for Stellar Pathways. So I had several conversations with the leadership at Okra and folks in the legislature, and the revised position is that all of Wayne County is eligible to apply for pathways, Stellar Pathways, except the 2 communities that are actually receiving Okra funding, community development block grant funding through the HELP program, those 2 communities being Cambridge City and Dublin. My apologies to those 2 communities, although between the 2, they're splitting $1 million towards projects that they identified as being extremely important to those communities. We did not in any way anticipate that receiving those funds would make them ineligible to participate in Stellar. So we will be working with the other communities to see who might be interested and how that would impact us. One of the issues with Stellar is that if you are a recipient, you are precluded from applying for most other Okra funding streams for a period of 5 years until all of those grants are closed out and completed. So that may be a reason why communities would opt out of participation in Stellar. Again, we haven't made any hard and fast decisions. We haven't discussed it at the commissioner level yet. what the opportunities and potential downsides of being applicants. I really don't see any downsides for the county to participate, but it is an awful lot of work. And if any of you have worked with Okra, it's very complicated, very complex work, making sure that we're expending federal funds appropriately. As the auditor, I'm sure, could attest, it's a significant amount of work tracking of those funds and reporting. So we'll see, and we'll communicate with you all before a decision is made. The letter of interest, if we choose to participate, is due to Okra by May the 1st, which would involve the commissioners signing off on a document that we choose to participate. And certainly we would want to bring that to you and get your input as well. Unlike the HELP program, where there were no particular matching funds required for a particular project, the Stellar funds would have matching requirements, so certainly you'll need to be involved in those conversations. There have been no additional expenditures of ARPA funds other than the funds that go to pay Beth Field's salary and a few dollars that we have spent with Baker Tilly on their consulting with us. However, we are gearing up. Over the next few months, we'll be expending a lot of those dollars, particularly the projects that we are supporting for other communities. We will continue to work on that, but Ron is working with us on developing memoranda of understanding or interlocal agreements. If we're dealing with a not-for-profit, we'll have a memorandum of understanding. If we're dealing with another unit of government, would be an interlocal agreement. So that will be kind of our contractual basis for conveying funds to those entities to complete the projects that were approved in the strategic investment plan. So
What are these monies guided towards in this Stellar?
Oh, in Stellar?
Yeah.
In Stellar, as opposed to HELP, there are some criteria. So there is approximately $8 million per each of the two Stellar designees at the end of this application process. So by May the 1st, we have to submit our letter of interest. From those letters, and there were 20 counties represented at the meetings I was at Monday and Tuesday, a total between the three training sessions of 32 counties have expressed interest, at least at that level. From those applicants, there will be 4 finalists that are selected. Each of those 4 finalists would receive $50,000 towards planning for the actual application, which will involve another strategic investment plan. And then from those 4 finalists, 2 designees would be chosen at the end of this year. We then have 4 years to expend those funds. Without going into too much complexity, community development block grants primarily are available to use for projects that specifically benefit low to moderate income residents of the county. Those projects can be anything from housing to sewer, water, the typical kinds of programs that community development block grants are used for. Blight elimination is another option. Excuse me? Actually, I was thinking of that when we were listening to Brandon earlier. There is $1.5 million of money from NDOT that is channeled through the feds that would be available to be used, and that could be used for bridges. Has to be used for construction programs with very few variations. So it is a possibility, yes. It's not a certainty, and the idea of this Stellar Pathways is that we would be partnering with other communities, and probably those funds in each category would be split among the communities, so there probably would not be $1.5 million that went to one of the applicants. And then there are several smaller pots of money from the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, the State Health Department, Department of Natural Resources, and a few others. So we'll be talking to you, and we'll be making a decision here in the next few weeks as to whether we want to try to put together a letter of intent. With that, I'll defer to any questions you might have. Anything? All right, thank you very much.
Does anyone have any committee reports today? Talk about previous committees.
Yes, thank you. The radio project that we're working on, I've been working with Matthew in the Communications Department to establish a stakeholder working group. This is a significant capital project for communications, for public safety in the county, and has a lot of moving parts and going to involve a lot of money. So in establishing that working group to work with Matthew and my team, we have representatives, obviously Matthew and Aaron from the 911 Center. We have 3 of the volunteer fire departments around the county that have representatives. The commissioners have appointed Brad Dwinger as a public safety and a user of the system and his experience. And I've talked with Max and with Beth that while I'm on council, my role in this project is not a council person. Because of the amount of money that it involves, I would really like the president of council to appoint a council member to serve on that stakeholder working group to help manage the budget and the dollars that are identified for that project as we work with the departments around the county. I asked Max if he was interested with his background in radio communications and towers, and we all know that Max is keen in watching the dollar. And so Beth, I'd ask if you would appoint Max to that stakeholder group.
Do I have a motion to appoint Max?
So move.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We've got something else to do. Yay.
Just what I need.
I know. All right, anybody else have a committee report? I'm just gonna tie in, our next meeting is April 3rd at 8 o'clock, and that's right before the eclipse. And I am a representative to the Tourism Board, and they have worked tirelessly on this eclipse thing. I hope you people realize there's going to be over 100,000 people coming to our county for this event. It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be huge for law enforcement, for everybody. Listen to what they're telling you about getting groceries early and all those kind of things, because especially the day of, that Monday, the 8th, is just gonna be pretty crazy for traffic and all kinds of things. If you need any swag or information or anything, I encourage you to go out to the Tourism Bureau. It's a great place to visit if you've never been there. They have a great little store with books and local authors and all kinds of things like that. But they are actually selling the approved glasses that you need to wear and promoting the eye safety, because people think it's silly, but you need to wear these glasses for 3 hours, like the hour and a half leading up to the eclipse, an hour and a half afterwards, to keep your eyes safe. So they're selling those glasses out there, and several people have them around the county. So make sure you're safe when you're watching the eclipse. And our next workshop is also March the 20th. And so with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Tony, would you like?